One of the things that we do when we work with students that have disabilities is we have to determine what it is that they need, okay? Because really, they're a select group of students, and we all know that, right? They wouldn't be a student with an IEP if they didn't have some needs that were outside the general way of doing things. Like, so you have your regular ed classroom, right? And you have teachers that provide instruction. We call that core instruction. And all students, including students with IEPs, get core instruction. I know we kind of took, you guys are fine, come on in. All students get core instruction, okay? They all get Tier 1 core instruction. And over time, students have, or the way we have programmed and planned and the way the law has worked, years ago when I first started, I've been doing this for 36 years. Brenda's been doing it a few more years than me.
Like I said that.
I got to stand over here where she can't reach me.
At least you didn't say how many.
I probably should tell you who I am and who she is real quick. My name's Denny Paul May. I work here at KVEC, due process consultant. 36 years in special ed. I was also a high school basketball coach. I was a director of special ed at Pikeville Independent. I was coordinator in Pike County for 18 years, or for 10 years. 8 years I was a classroom teacher there. I was 2 years classroom teacher at Pikeville Independent, and then I became director. The last 7 years, going on 8 now, been here at KVEC as a consultant. Brenda is my boss and one of my very best friends in the world. She has been instrumental in everything I've done since I became a director. And so we do a lot of training around what's good instruction for students with disabilities, but we also are the compliance officers. Okay, Brenda's over all the results and monitoring for 15 school districts in this region. And when districts get into trouble for messing up on IEPs and things, we go in and help them do that. So I have 3 children, a grandbaby that calls me Shark. And I love bluegrass music. I'm a hillbilly, okay, I'm proud of it. And I'm a basketball guy. I love basketball, okay? So my wife's a former kindergarten teacher, so I still have to line up at lunch, okay? You know what I'm talking about, right? I still have to, the routine, you know, you got to get up and make the bed, you know, you got to make sure you take care of the cat, you know, before you do anything else. You got that routine every day. My kids have lived their lives that way. I've learned to live I wasn't that structured when I met her, but now I am. Okay, it's been really good for me. And Brenda was director of Breathitt County for a long, long time. She's done a little bit of everything, including playing football in Texas. So I'm not kidding about that either. And so I kind of have to kind of watch. You know, sometimes she'll deck you if you're not careful, right? But no, she's a wonderful person, and she's got a great family, and she lives over in Jackson. I live in Pikeville. Now, we're going to talk about kids, all right? We're going to talk about what we can give you to help you help kids, right? That's why you're there, right? And so you say, well, why specially designed instruction? Why are you talking to us about that? Well, that's really the key thing that you do out there. That's the thing that you support. Now, you say, well, I can't deliver specially designed instruction as a paraeducator, but really, you can, after it's delivered the first time by a special education teacher, you can take and reteach that and do whatever you want to do, because you guys support those kids. I know you do. You're in there with them and you're supporting. And what we want to try to say today is, yes, accommodation is important. Yes, reading to them, adapting the materials and doing those things. Yes, accommodations have their place. But accommodation's not teaching. Accommodation's a tool. Teaching is what we're going to talk about here. Is what can we teach the kid? How can we provide them with some instruction, some additional instruction. So you guys, some of you are in the trenches day in and day out, and most of you are. Some of you are in FMD classrooms where there's lots of needs for the students. I don't know what keeps beeping. I don't know if that's my phone or... But anyway, I'm easily distracted. Can you all tell that? I'm serious. I have a serious problem. Dion, who's teaching over here next door, she says, I've got adult ADHD. I say she does, and then we just go back and forth. But we go all over the place. But we work hard here, and we try to do what's right for kids. And so, anyway, specially designed instruction. What is it? What does it mean for us? How does it apply to us? And can we do it? Yes. The law says in Kentucky, our policies and procedures and our there's a varmint in here.
No postcard.
Yeah. So it is summertime, so we get some of that stuff. But what is it? We're going to look at that. We're going to look at hopefully some things that we're going to define your roles for you, and hopefully give you some things to think about that you can help kids. Okay, that's the whole idea. And so, without further ado, I'm going to get started with this stuff, and I'm going to give you right off the bat what we always do with our lessons. We start talking about, hey, how can I get your attention, but then how can I focus you on what we're going to learn? One of my favorite teachers, Anita Archer, says the focus of your classroom should be learning, learning, and more learning. You know, she does it just like that. She's about 80-some years old. She's one of the best teachers I've ever seen. And so you'll get some of those elements today when we go through. Yesterday we had a great day of learning over here. We had a summer institute, and we had a guy by the name of David Sloan, who I'd worked with previously in Pike County, teach. And he said, you know, you got to get people's attention. So he did a high five kind of thing. Like, you ever seen this? Like where you're trying to get the kids focused. And so that's one of the biggest things. So you hold your hand up, and when the teacher holds the hand up, then it's like a race to see who can get both hands up, right? So they're always competing, so you create a little fun. So when I raise my hand like that, let's all do that. Let's just, like we've just been held up at the bank. All right? All right, so we'll do that. We'll do that a few times. I really like that. I stole that from him yesterday, right? And I've got some, in this presentation, I've got some, I got about 7 things that you can do to get kids' attention, because you can't teach them if you don't have their attention, right? You cannot get anything done if you don't have them engaged and you don't have them involved. So one of the first things you do when you start teaching a lesson, let's say that we've done everything by the law, the special ed teacher has taught the lesson, now you're going to reinforce that lesson, because you know what kids with disabilities lots of times needs? They need teaching, don't they? But specially designed instruction, not really reteaching. They need teaching in a different way, and that's what special design instruction is. So when they model that special design instruction for the first time, you can take it and go with it as a paraeducator, okay? And we have tons of faith in you guys that you can do that, because you've been in schools as much as anybody, and you've seen how things are done and what makes the difference and what makes a difference for kids. And so today we're going to look at the learning intentions, and when we talk about the learning intentions, let's practice. Oh, look at you! Some of you listen. See, I'm 88. I was yesterday we were sitting at a table with 5 people. Who was always last, Brenda? It was me. It was me. I was like, yeah. You know, once I saw everybody else raising their hands, I would raise my hands. Right? So, anyway. When we talk about learning, define and articulate specially designed instruction. What is specially designed instruction? What is the why? Why do we do what we do? And what are some examples and resources for SDI? And how will we use this? That's basically what we're going to talk about, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to activate some prior knowledge. I'm going to see what you guys know. So can you see that? Can you see that? The first question says, we'll just kind of do this one together, okay? No, let's let you all do it. Let's let you all do it. Let's see how we do. So the first question is, SDI, special design instruction, is what the teacher does to help close the academic performance gap between students with disabilities and their general education peers, and is unique to the individual with students, to the individual with disabilities. So is that true or false? Don't call it out. Just write it down on your paper. Write T or F. And I'm just going to walk around and I'm going to assess what your thoughts are. And I can gather some data real quick and I can put, yeah. So I'm going to read it again. Specially designed instruction is what the teacher does to help, if we could turn that light off, we could probably see it, to help the academic performance gap, to help close the academic performance gap between students with disabilities and their general education peers. I should have took a screenshot of this and made a copy. Probably turn the lights off everywhere. No, that turned the presentation off. Nevertheless, yeah, we'll get it back. We'll get it back somehow. Yeah. Yeah.
It says front row. That's the reason I did that.
Let's see.
Front row.
HDMI.
Right here it is. HDMI.
HDMI. Yeah. Should come on. It'll come on in a second, maybe.
We had them on.
Yeah. That's all right. I keep hearing something beep too. Go get one of the holler boys and see. Okay, so let me read this question to you. SDI is what the teacher does. It's number one. It's either true or false. SDI is what the teacher does to help close the academic performance gap between students with disabilities and their general education peers. And SDI is unique to the student with disabilities. Okay? So that one's true, right? Everybody got that, right? And then SDI is based upon the academic needs and concerns and the rate of academic growth stated in the present levels. The present levels are that current level of functioning, okay, that you will see on the first page of the IEP. You guys have seen those, right? Present level, it tells what the student can do in academics, what they can do in general intelligence, and those types of things. So it just went off on us for some reason.
That's because I entered the room.
I pushed
And she pushed a button there. It said
did
off.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
SDI is based upon the academic needs.
I did, but it wouldn't come back on.
Oh, well, there you go, look. You got it.
It's coming.
You just magic. You just magic everywhere you go.
You can be magic. Do, do, do. We're back. SDI is based upon the academic needs, concerns, and rate of academic growth stated in the PLAF, that's the present levels, which are necessary for the student to enhance their academic performance required for mastery of their measurable annual goals. Is that true or false? So they're going to master their goal, right? They're going to master their goal. That's the takeaway. That's true, right? That's true, okay? So I know that's a big, long, wordy thing. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that. It's just really too many words. SDI is instruction unique for students with IEPs. Yeah, true, right? True. So what's our takeaway here? We know that SDI is intentional and it's targeted toward the goal. So anything you do in your support of students, if you take them into a small group, and that's a great way to do SDI and to get things done. You take them into I can see it in my mind's eye. I sound like a preacher when I say that, right? I can see this little group of kids leaving the regular classroom, going down the hall, and you guys are the people that are in there with them doing the work, right? I can see that. So when you go in there, what are we doing? Do we know what the goals are on the IEP? Do we have, if we got 7 or 8 kids, can we keep up with all that information? Because if they're doing the goals correctly, it's based on the student's unique needs, so they're all going to be all kinds of different goals everywhere, right? So the reason I do this, when you do your lessons with them, get their attention, right? And then tell them what we're going to do. What's the goal? What's the goal today? And the goal for SDI is always to be doing something that works on the goal. So the goal or the intention of the learning here, learning, more learning, as Anita Archer would say, is focused toward the IEP goal. Now, Do you do that the entire time you got them? Maybe not. Maybe you're helping them get organized and you're trying to help them find and they're trying to pass the class or whatever it is. But when you're instructing toward attaining the goal. That's really what specially designed instruction is. Nothing more. Now, I was about to say, when I started, all students get core instruction, including those special needs kids. If they're in a co-teaching setting, and you're in there supporting the co-teaching setting, they get core instruction first. And then the IEP is layered on top of all the other things that you get in between that. Okay? So the law says that we get differentiation. That's what a regular ed teacher does. They may adapt based on a kid's readiness or their learning style. How do they hear better? Do they hear it better? Do they see it better and take it in? Do they write about it and take it in better? Those types of things. That's differentiation, okay? Every kid gets that. Every kid gets a design of a lesson up front that takes into account differences. That's called universal design for learning. All kids get that, including the IEP kids. And all kids should get RTI and MTSS, either in Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. But only the kids with IEPs that are eligible need and receive specially designed instruction. So specially designed instruction is unique to students with disabilities that qualify.
MTSS is, when you said that, I saw.
Yeah.
Same thing as RTI is what I say at school.
It's the same thing as RTI. It's multi-tiered systems of support. We have a lot of acronyms, right? We could do a whole class on acronyms in special ed. As a matter of fact, I do one of those at Alice Lloyd. Okay? And I make them keep up with all those acronyms so they learn the language. That's another, since you brought it up, Brenda, great prompt into what's one of the things that we do with students. If they don't know the vocabulary, boy, how hard does that core instruction get? So one of the things you might be doing is, one of their goals might be to have embedded vocabulary instruction in their lesson. They're going to learn more words, and they're going to learn the meaning of more words. And we're going to figure out how to represent that visually, auditorily, through the ears, through the eyes, through different models and representations. So that's an SDI in and of itself. You say, what is SDI? Well, it's a big old crazy federal definition that says adapt content, methodology, and delivery of instruction. That's basically what it says. But that don't really tell us anything, does it? It just says what it says. We have to dive below the surface. So we're going to dive below the surface just a little bit, and let's see if we can get this technology to work now. Okay, so there's the federal definition. Right on cue. Special design instruction is adapting as appropriate the content. That's the books. Okay? The methods. That's how we teach them. And then the delivery of instructions, how we might pair them and how we pace them. You know, put them in a small group, drag them down the hall. They don't want to go, but you're dragging them, right? So, what have we established thus far? SDI is only for whom? Students with disabilities, right? SDI is not accommodation. It's instruction. Okay? If you're not teaching them something, then it's not SDI. If it's not intentional toward the goal, it's not SDI. It's something else. And you can do accommodations all day long, and they have their place. I'm not saying we don't need to do accommodation, or one's better than the other. But you can't do all accommodation. If you did all accommodation, you know what they would be? 504 students. You ever heard of those? That's what they would be. Because that's what 504 students get. They get accommodation, they get tools. You hand them tools. You don't do any delivery of instruction. All their instruction comes from a regular classroom. Okay? So, am I saying pullout's bad? No. Am I saying access to content is heightened when kids can be in the classroom? Yes. Okay? So, any questions thus far? That's the federal definition, but we're going to get away from that as quickly as we can, right? Because it doesn't tell us a whole lot. It kind of points us in a direction. It's like saying the kid's got problems in reading. What's that tell us? Where do we start working? right? We got to dive a little below the surface. So we got to find out if it's fluency, if it's phonics, if it's vocabulary deficiencies, and comprehend, being able to make sense of what they read, those types of things. So, without babbling on too much, let's go on. So, there's this old, I'm going to show you a document. I'm going to show you a really good document on KDE's website right here. Okay? And I love it because we've called it the old Schoolhouse Document. You see why? We renamed it up here in Hillbilly Land. They kind of laugh at us, but that's what we call it. We've even got some people out in the flatlands down in central Kentucky calling it that now. The Schoolhouse Document. But it breaks down by area, and it tells you everything you need to know about all those different things I was just talking about. Universal design for learning, scaffolding, differentiation. It has definition, it has all that stuff in it. But here's what I like about it. It's got a chart in here. So if you're talking about what we were just talking about, which is basic reading, it gives you the teaching stuff on here on the left, and it gives you the supplementary aids and services and the tools or the accommodations on the right. So if we're discussing basic reading, one of the ways that we would do that might be to include visual strategies, including word recognition and visual memory for words. So that's one way we might adapt the reading lesson and make it specially designed instruction, because we're teaching it in a different way. We got to find out, and we got to teach it in a special way. Ann Benninghoff says it's a civil right that they get that. So if we got a group of students that are going in the regular classroom, they're involved in the regular classroom, and then we're just pulling them out and doing accommodations, we're not providing them with specially designed instruction. We're violating a civil right of theirs, right? So we need to be thinking about that. So I just wanted to show you that really quickly. Let's see if I can get back to where I was.
On the right side of that, where it's got supplementary aids, that is what the student needs.
Yeah.
They need a graphic organizer or whatever. That's what they need.
Yeah.
And this over here is what you or the teacher would do.
Yeah, these are the instructional pieces, and it's got throughout this Schoolhouse Document, and you can get this on KDE's website by just Googling KDE and doing I think it's IEP Lesson Plan and Development Handbook. We call it the Schoolhouse Document. You see how try to make the complex simple, right? So, but Brenda always has a great handle on it. So this is what the teacher does. This is what we're doing as instructing, and these are the tools we're using, and these are the things that the kid needs to have access and to be able to make progress within the curriculum. Okay? And it's got it for every area. If you want to find something on mathematics, you can find it. If you want to find something on how to do that on writing, you can find it. Okay?
Even it has vocational pieces.
It does, yeah.
Absences and those types of things. It's also in there.
So the KDE put this out. Does that look a whole lot different than the federal definition? It's the same stuff, right? It just it's a great one-pager to kind of get you into that category. Kids got reading problems. This especially gets us in the category of special design instruction, but it still doesn't tell us a whole lot, really. We got the adapt, the content, the methodology, and what we use. Adapting, making changes based on student needs, individualizing. We know kids get individual goals, right? We know that already. And we know that the content comes from the Kentucky academic standards for the most part. You know, we have some alternate academic standards for 1% for the kids that are in FMD, and that's a little bit different. And we got some childhood appropriate activities for kids that are in preschool, so we know that. And then the methodology is what the teacher does to instruct, assess, and reteach high leverage practices. We're going to talk about some of those things. The one that I like is number 16, explicit instruction, Anita Archer. If you could see this woman, I had my picture made with her and went home and immediately told my 30-year kindergarten teacher wife that I had a new favorite teacher. She didn't like it too much. I said, let me show you the picture. She was 80 and she was about this tall. You know Doug that you all just had? Like, we were in this classroom down in Lexington. There was 80 of us in this room, wasn't there, Renda? And Doug's over there acting up. Can y'all see that? Can y'all see that happening? You know, he's with another behavior specialist. He's acting up. Can you imagine that? And so this little old lady says, and she was amazing because she'd learned everybody's name through that week. We had 4 8-hour days with her. Douglas! He jumped that high. It was like a cartoon. You've seen when Bugs Bunny scares somebody and they jump straight up, or Wile E. Coyote, the whole deal. It's exactly what it looked like. But she was a master teacher because she had it down. She knew what special design instruction was. She knew that students needed lots of modeling. She knew that students needed lots of practice opportunities. She knew that they needed to be engaged. And that they needed to have examples and non-examples, and they needed scripts. They needed some worked examples, and they needed to see what the non-example looked like. What's the wrong answer and the right answer? And she was marvelous. I mean, absolutely. And we went back a second year and had 3 more 8-hour days with her, and she remembered our names. It was amazing. 80 years old. And she just got off the airplane. She had been in New Zealand teaching people how to teach. She works with San Diego Unified School District. She's all over the place. This lady, if you write her name down, if you don't take anything away from this today, write her name down. Anita Archer, explicit instruction. It's high leverage practice number 16, and she's from the University of Oregon, and she wrote the book on explicit instruction. And it's what we should be doing most of the time when we're working with students with disabilities. Clear targets, hook, assessing them, checking for understanding often, giving them high levels of opportunities to respond to us. So let's just think right now. Okay, here's what we're going to do. A real quick engagement strategy. We've talked about what specially designed instruction. Write 3 things down that we've said specially designed instruction is right now. Write it down in your silo. Do not cheat. Do not look at your neighbor. Hey. All right. High five. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Write 3 things down. Write 3 things down. All right. What is specially designed instruction? Why we do it? What are we doing with it? Who's it for? All those kinds of things. I'm scaffolding a little bit, right? And I'm walking around, I'm looking around, I'm talking around. So write it, and then after you get your 3, share it with your neighbor. That's your next step. Talk about it. Then we're going to reconsider it, and we're going to rewrite it. Okay? And after we rewrite it, we're going to share. I'm going to call on somebody in here from each table. From each table. We already got the NBA draft going on here, and here's Victor Wembanyama right here. Where's Scoot Henderson at? Number 2, right? Brandon, what was his name? The guy that played at Alabama. He was so good. Brandon Allen, I think is his name. Okay. All right, so have a little conversation with your neighbor. Go ahead, talk about it. Y'all compare your notes. Compare your notes. Cheat now. Cheat. I'm encouraging cheating. All right. Now, after you've had that conversation, go back to your silo. Quit cheating. Rewrite it. Did you learn anything from your neighbor? Did you have something different than the other neighbor? Did number 1 over here did she have all the answers?
Through it, no.
Looking at me.
I can't see through the glasses. They're older.
Okay, now, we want to do this quickly because I got to get through a lot of information. So, what's one thing that you've learned about SDI already?
For a specific student's needs.
It's for a specific student's needs. It's individualized, right? And it's for only whom? Who's the only ones that get SDI?
With the IEP.
IEP kids, right? What about right here? Now I'm going right up the middle right here. I'm going right up, just like I'm running the option. I'm running right up the middle. Football. What'd you have? Anything different?
I put what the teacher does to help with academic performance goals.
What the teacher does for IEP goals, right? IEP goals. Right. Okay, right here, yellow shirt. Come here, yellow shirt.
I'm out.
You're out.
I'm out.
Do we have anything different than what we heard up here?
No.
Come on. Somebody had something different. I know y'all messing with me.
We said that.
Hey, listen. I already had to follow Doug, okay? Goals. Specific to goals, right? Intentional to goals. What do we have over here? Anything? It's okay. It's okay if you don't. It's all right. Pretty much what they've already said. Okay, now, let's review real quick. Let's review. You guys have something? Huh?
Not accommodations.
It's not accommodations. We'll get a real high five on that one. Yes. Now, y'all slowing down. Y'all slowing down. It's getting close to lunchtime. We're going to have to get some energy. All right. I like that. It's not accommodation. We're going to talk about that in a second. Now, let's review real quick. What did I just do? I did an engagement strategy that you can use with your kids. You got a question. Okay? Maybe it's the content that you're preparing for this kid, or you're reteaching this that the special ed teacher's just gone over, but you're going to reteach it because they didn't get it, right? They're a little bit slow to pick it up yet, right? So, what did we do? We had them work on their own. We got them in small groups, and we got them with, if we're in a co-teaching setting, we got them with some high, middle, and low. We try to mix ability, group them, right? We don't want to put them all, we don't pull all the special ed teachers to the back, or special ed students to the back, right? No, that's no. That goes against research. That's not what we're supposed to be doing, right? Now, sometimes that might be okay if we're reading to somebody or something, you know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. But in most instances, 6 to 8 in a group, 6 to 8 in a group with mixed ability. And so what we're doing is we're forcing engagement. We got to have engagement. We got to have them busy. Everybody in here participated because what did I do? I didn't let you off the hook. So if you're working with a small group, don't ever let them off the hook. Say, I'm going to call on someone. I'm not going to let anyone off the hook, right? I'm going to go to each table and call on someone. And so you had them, think about your elicited responses right there. The research says the more responses you get from kids, the more engaged they are, the more behavior goes down. So we can get rid of Doug. Wouldn't that be great? We could just wipe him out of here, right? Yeah, I like that idea, you know, because you should see. I love Doug too, but Doug's great to hang out with, but he plays pranks on me. Can you imagine that? He's always messing with me. Yeah. No, we loved it. Listen, I'm just kidding. We loved that. But you see what I'm saying, though? If you've got kids engaged, if you've got people doing things, every person in here, and I didn't mean to ignore you all. Did you all have anything over here? Same thing? Okay. And I'm sorry, I apologize. And did I get to you guys? Okay, same thing. Okay, so we want to make sure every group gets a chance, right? And everybody gets the same treatment on that. But the whole idea is to have them engaged. And when you have them engaged, think about it. You thought about it. What is SDI? You wrote about it in a silo on your own, so you had to think about it yourself. Then you shared it with your neighbor, and you might have learned something, might have picked up. I can rewrite it real quick. That's 4 responses. And then I'm going to share, so I'm scared to death, right? If I don't like talking in front of a group. But if you're in a small group, sometimes that goes away, doesn't it? Big group, it's a little more imposing. I can remember being online. We'd be online with all these people from all across the state, and we're addressing everybody. Lord have mercy, you're sitting there, you're shaking. But then you go into small groups in the breakout, you know, during the pandemic, you go into small groups, I'd start running my mouth, right? Talking more, because you feel more comfortable. So you got to add some comfortability in there. That's a strategy you can always use. That's an engagement strategy that you can always use, where you're getting kids to think, write, and speak. Think, write, and speak, and they're talking to one another, so they're learning from their peer, right? Real strong strategy. So we adapt the content. What do we do to adapt the content? This is things like the kid may need an alternative text. Sometimes they may need a leveled text, a different level of text, like, or they might need something that's a little shorter because they're not keeping up with the pace, right? Sometimes when we adapt content, we change the order of the contents that's delivered. Or sometimes we We might just look at the critical content. Anita Archer says, cut the fluff and teach the stuff. Sometimes we have to chunk the most important material. Like in a classroom, the teacher might talk about 10 things and only 1 or 2 of those are critical to the skills that you need to actually be able to be successful in the curriculum and on the test and that they take at the end, or to be able to do the skill that's going to scaffold you to the next level. It's going to a stair-step progression, because those Kentucky academic standards are based on progressions. Like they start with a low level of recognizing letters, and before you know it, you're reading words, right? And then you're reading sentences, and then you're putting them together in paragraphs. So it's a progression. So if the kids are missing any of those, we go back and we get extra practice on those things. That's what special design instruction can be sometimes, right? So
It's hard in the classroom because sometimes you just don't have that time.
you don't have the time. I know. Yes, I know. Do you work at high school level?
No.
No.
In kindergarten.
Oh, okay, yeah. So are you running centers in kindergarten? Or
Do centers.
do you do centers? Do you have an unmanned station in kindergarten?
Meaning?
Do you, like you have, all right, if you had, yeah, like a,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
yeah, but is it, are you taking data from that center? That's the question I would say. And is that going to support what the goal is, the IEP goal? So that's what I'm looking at. And that may be something that you have to work with your special ed teacher that you work with to kind of get them, and your kindergarten person to kind of to integrate that. And a lot of it comes back to planning. A lot of it comes back.
Really good.
Yeah.
To just say, hey, so this is what
Yeah.
you work with
Yeah.
Johnny on.
Yeah, yeah, it is problematic. I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy, because it's roll your sleeves up and work your tail off, right? To do it right.
Us work with kids though that like, say they're in first grade, but they still don't know their ABCs and stuff.
Right. So
So basically what I do is let them listen to the teacher while
yeah.
they're in the room, and then I follow through with trying to teach them their ABCs.
Yeah, and what you got to do is you got to look at that IEP. You got to know what's on that IEP and look at those.
I
You got-
hate to say that,
But I'm going to give you a tool. I'm going to give you a tool, and I'm going to say if I'm reinforcing the learning, I've got to know what the goal is, because that old guy over at KVEC told me it's a civil right, and number 2, we need to know what the goal is so we can work to support that, because that's what you're doing is supporting specially designed instruction. That's your number 1 role. If I had to say your number 1 role, you say, oh, get him out of here. Is that your number 1 role? No. Your number 1 role is, we're in the business of education. And the whole thing, we go back to Anita Archer, learning, learning, more learning, right? She says it just like that. Okay, so, do not lower standards for students with IEPs always. Sometimes we have to water it down just a little bit. But the ones that usually get that are the 1% kids, right? The kids that are on alternate assessment. Everybody else should be trying to meet that standard. The law says you got to meet that standard, right? So what are we doing? And then if you got IEP goals, those IEP goals should be written in a way that they're going to help the kid close that gap. Okay, so we got to move because I'm going to run out of time. This methodology thing, this is where you really come in. This is the different teaching strategies. This is what makes it special. Changes to how the students are taught. It could be chunking the material we just talked about, pulling out the important stuff and reinforcing it and going over it again and giving them lots of feedback and lots of practice turns and lots of chances to give responses. If you do that, they're engaged and the behavior goes down. Multi-sensory methods, we got to be aware of how they best learn, so we need to profile them. Your special ed teacher needs to tell you how they best learn. What's the data say in the IEP? What's the data say in the psychological report? Are they an auditory learner? Like me, I have to see it and I have to work with it. I have to do my flashcards. And I've got a daughter that's in PA school right now down in Knoxville, and she just had 30 PowerPoints in her last little thing before she had her test, and she made flashcards for each one of them. That's how she learns. She learns just like I do. Now her mother, catalog brain. It's in there. She sees it one time, boom, she's got it, right? So she gets a lot of that smarts from her mom, not me. Okay? So, but you got to know how they best. What are the best ways for them to learn the vocabulary? Is it to see it? Is it to hear it? Is it to work with it? To use examples? So that's the types of things we're talking about. What's the alternative math strategies? Do we use manipulatives? Do we have a number line? Do we have special things? We get those tools, but how are we teaching them to use those tools? That's what special design instruction is. How are we teaching them to use the tool? And then scaffolding. In the writing process, do we have a checklist? Do we have little things that keeps them organized? We have graphic organizers we give them to keep their information organized. They put this topic sentence and these details in there, right? So this is where the special comes into play. And it's an obligation, and it's something that Ann Benninghoff will tell you, civil rights. She wrote that book I've got laying over there. And so I've been through that thing. And then we adapt the delivery. Explicit instruction with clear targets to the goal. We got tons of practice and feedback, tons of intentional forced responses, focus, recall of information from a blank slate. Now, I want you just to think about, for just a second, I want you to write down two things. Two things that you've learned about how you can increase. What are two examples of special design instruction that we've talked about already? We did forced engagement, right? Write that down. Forced engagement. And we give tons of practice. Practice turns up and feedback up. If you practice wrong and you don't get any corrective feedback, you're going to keep doing it wrong. It's like shooting a free throw. I can go in, I know what the process is, you know. Got a little mnemonic, I remember: beef, balance, eyes, elbow, follow through, right? I can go in there, drain 10 in a row, right? But if I'm doing this, and I don't have a coach telling me, hey, your follow through's falling out, you're not balanced. Your eyes are not on the rim. Your elbow's not under you just a little bit. Your follow through is going to the side. I've got to give those specific things, right? So, focus on recall of information. Can you recall information? Okay? Now, if I had time, I would test you again on I would say, without any notes, here's something we can do. We're working on memory. Because how many kids in special ed have problems with memory? Just about all of them. I have problems with memory. I'm 57 years old, right? Okay.
No better as you get older. Either.
That's right. That's right. But I'm trying to fight it. And Doug Smith too, right? Okay, so I'm working on memory. So I'm testing the kid intentionally. When they come in, what did we learn yesterday? When we get finished, I'm taking data. What did we learn today? From a blank slate. Recall it from. So I'm saying, Sydney, you got to create a mnemonic. That's a memory aid, okay? But if she don't know how to do that, can she do that down there in Knoxville without Dad? Because I'm not there to give her the Mary's violet eyes make Johnny stay up nights, period. Y'all remember that one from 4th, 5th grade back when we were learning the planets? And now they've messed us with, the woke generation has taken Pluto away.
Yeah.
Right?
I argued my son one night
Yeah.
over that.
So the period's gone. There's no punctuation anymore. Nobody cares about it, right? Pluto's gone. All right. But what my whole idea here is I want to get this to you. Okay, I know we're going to run out of time. If I give you Mary's violet eyes, that's an accommodation. If I teach you the metacognitive process, the steps behind what a good learner does, and that's what our kids miss sometimes because they don't have that. They don't have the executive functioning to plan and organize that. They don't have the working memory to keep that in there long enough. So you got to give them a tool, but you got to show them how to create that tool for themselves. Can you come up with one that relates to you? You see, that's the difference between accommodation and specially designed instruction. If I give you the Mary's violet eyes, or if I teach you how to create your own, that's the difference. Okay? And that's so powerful. That's what Benninghoff says throughout that book right there. And if I had 3 hours, we could really dive into it. And I'd love to be able to just keep you through lunch, but they're not going to let me do that, right? So Doug will get mad at me. And yeah. So, organizers, small group instruction, pacing differences. Sometimes we got to give kids a lot more time, right? And we got to give them a lot more practice. We got to give them a lot more feedback. That's what we're talking about. That's what specially designed instruction is. Take that lesson and adapt it and make it special and unique to what their needs are. That's what specially designed instruction
That
is.
should be the definition of it right there.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's different than adapt content and methodology and all that jargon that we get
You lost me
from.
with that definition.
Yeah, so sure. That's federal. You ever looked at a tax form? Yeah, okay, all right. So we're together here.
I
We're
just looked at refund word.
yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. We can all use that. So let me jump ahead and just show you this little slide. Why especially to address the unique needs of the student. That's why we do it. To address goals with intensity and frequency that will lead to meeting goals indicated. Accommodations are not SDI, but they're not bad. They're good. They have their place. Kids need them. But when you teach them to do the mnemonic, do they take that down the hall to the science class? They just were with you in English. Now they can use it in science class. That's creating what? Independence, as opposed to looking for somebody to hand it to us. We want to talk about a federal problem, right? Are we getting a handout? Or are we teaching them kids to take care of themselves? You see the difference? And so that's where I say, when I think back over my time, when I was a co-teacher, a lot of my time was spent just doing accommodations. And I didn't have that understanding that I have now of what really specially designed instruction is. So, ensure promise, ensure access. This is a promise. When we say ensure, we promise that we're going to give them access. Now, those tools give them access. Like if a kid's in the reading on a second grade level and they're in 11th grade, we better be showing them some Google stuff, right? Some add-ons where they can have some content read to them so that they can have access. That's access. That's a tool. That's an accommodation. But we're still not going to give up on teaching that little fella how to read, right? That's specially designed instruction, okay? Inclusive settings help. Inclusive practices help more so the child can meet the educational standards. What that means is keep them in the regular classroom as much as we can if they will allow us to work on our goals along the side. And that takes co-planning. It takes a lot of time and effort between the three people that's in there. If you've got a kindergarten teacher, you've got an instructional assistant, and you've got a special ed teacher, you should be on the same page. And everybody should be instructing. That's my thoughts. Now, some people disagree with that, okay? And those things have to interpersonally be worked out amongst the group, right? But that's what needs to happen because instruction, remember the key, Anita Archer said, learning is the goal. Learning. That's all that matters. Not that I'm happy or I've got the best group or what kind of clothes do I have on, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Learning is the key. So, and when we do, if we hold kids to high expectations, they will start to meet those standards. If we figure out how to make it special, keep them engaged, and get them the practice that they need. Will we close all the gaps? No, I don't think we'll ever close all the gaps, but we will get them closer and closer, okay? So, this is a little thing that she puts together. These are the 3 whats. It's content, methodology. This is kind of a review. And then we get to these planning steps right here. UDL, everybody gets UDL. Remember, everybody gets differentiation. Everybody gets MTSS, or RTI. But only special ed kids get SDI, right? Only the special ed kids are in the middle. But the special ed kids get all this stuff layered around that when they're in core instruction. Okay? You can have an IEP as an SLD kid in reading and still get intervention in math. Okay? You see the difference? So, real quick, let's just do this little activity. If it's is it SDI or accommodation? A graphic organizer. What's your all's thoughts? We're just going to do 1 or 2 of these. It's an accommodation? What if you teach them how to build that graphic organizer themselves? What if you teach them the metacognitive, the thought process? What's a good learner do with this graphic organizer? And you teach them the steps. Then it becomes what? SDI. And you could do that with every one of these. If it's teaching, it's instruction. Teaching them how to do it. Teaching them how to create it. Teaching them how. So look down here. I give them a word bank or I teach them how to create their own word bank. You see the difference? I give them partially completed notes, or I teach them how to create their own partially completed notes. They can go into the content and make their own partially completed notes as a study aid. You see? All right, so every one of them you can flip. If you just understand that specially designed instruction is teaching them how to do it, not giving it to them. Accommodating's giving it to them. Sometimes we have to give it to them, right? Because we can't teach them fast enough. So is it special? Does it differ in content method and delivery? Does it address the unique needs of the student? These are the questions when you ask yourself, are we doing SDI? Is it related to a measurable annual goal? Are we collecting data to measure progress? That's a whole different ballgame, right? We should be, if we're working on a goal, we should be taking data points. Either weekly, a couple times a week. Maybe if it's behavior, it might be daily. Those behavior people cause problems. See Doug come in here?
Yeah.
He's checking on me. He's checking on me. Make sure I don't get more time than he got. But he took 10 minutes of my time. So, does it grow skills that can be used in other places? Remember I said, if I teach you that mnemonic and teach you how to build that mnemonic, I can take it to Knoxville with me. I don't have to have Daddy down there to help me give it to me, right? Does it build independence? Yes. Okay, those are the things that we ask ourselves. Now, I'm going to get to one more thing. This is how, when we plan for SDI, we clarify the learning target, and we think about, like if you're in algebra, we know there's going to be some difficult moments, even for the kids that don't have an IEP, right? So we clarify or pinpoint the difficult moments. We choose which IEP goal we're going to address, and that's their information. Now let me give you this. Oh, you already got them, don't they? They already got them. Y'all have that sheet that has IEP Goal Planning. What's it look like? Let me see. I think it's this one. Yes. Right here. I gave you that because you can take that back and you can put the kids' goals on there. You can make as many sheets as you want to, and you got to know what the goal is, right? You got to be able to choose the goal that you're going to address. And then when we identify the metacognitive processes, we think, here's what we do when we do SDI. We think, what does a good learner, how do they attack that difficult moment? How do they attack that problem in practice? That really difficult time in the lesson. How do they do that? What are the steps behind that? And then we teach our kids those steps. And we may have to give them a scaffold. And you know, when we think about our students, I think I gave you two. Let's see. This one right here. Did I give you one that had
We got the yellow one.
the paraeducator? So that's the checklist, right? That's just ask yourself, am I doing these things? How much is it implemented in my job? And can I get better? If I use this is a really good checklist to just say, this is what we're doing. But I wanted to talk about executive functioning for a second, and I don't know if I gave you a copy of that or not. And I really didn't get to the good stuff. So if I've got a goal, and I know that the difficult moment is Johnny can't remember. It's an executive functioning piece, right? Johnny can't regulate his impulses. If you've got a lesson where there's a lot of movement, he might get distracted, right? He's like me, right? He might get distracted. So we got to build in our thinking. We teach him maybe a mini lesson on how. Now, when we get up, Johnny, you can't be doing this. You can't be doing that. You got to get right to your seat. You teach him those steps. You got to get right to your seat. You got to get your pencil out. You got to get your paper, and you start modeling that for him, and you show him how to do that. So you build that in. Now, another executive functioning problem is working memory, and I want to talk about this real quick, and we're going to quit. Okay. So the goal is during small group instruction, after being provided a checklist or a step-by-step, 1 second. She's calling time on me. I know what she did. We will teach the student. He will learn to create a mnemonic in his goal, right? In order to solve equations in algebra. And Johnny's going to do this. So that's the circumstance. These are the conditions under which he's going to do it. And this is the verb that we're going to do. And how are we going to teach that? We're going to provide him with a checklist. We're going to let him practice it. We're going to give him a lot of practice turns. We're going to give him a lot of feedback. And that's what we're going to do, right? So One of the top things that you can work on with students is teaching them to overcome their memory issues. Okay? So take that with you. That's an executive function. We've had a great day today. It's time for lunch. I've held you over 3 minutes. I only got 3 of my 10 minutes that Doug took away. I know are most of you from Letcher? All of you are from Letcher? Do we have anybody from any other places? All right. We love Regina here. I'll just say that. I just want to say too that it's a hard job. Okay, and I know sometimes decisions that are made are not always, the most popular ones, but they might be the right one. But here's what I'll say to you: the most important thing is teaching the kid and the learning that the kid does. Okay, the learning that the kid gets. So hopefully you learned some things here today. I appreciate your time. All right, thank you.